Facts, where the truth always prevails.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk.
This is Hard Facts.
6 minutes gone past the 3 o'clock hour, officially welcoming you to Hard Facts. This is the nation's #1 talk news and sports radio station, and we're broadcasting live from the economic capital of Nigeria, Lagos, yes, of course, and from our audiovisual studios right here in Itimi and Crescent, Victoria Island, Lagos. My name is Maryann Okon. As we kickstart conversations on our abridged version of Hard Facts, I'm being joined by the program manager for Yiaga Africa. He's just joined us via Zoom. Paul James has been on the show a couple of times. Today we're going to be discussing prosecution of electoral offenders. Now, recently, Serap has actually said that INEC's chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakub, risks a jail term for failing to go after offenders of electoral offenders. I beg your pardon. Now, they have actually gone as far as filing a contempt suit. This was sometime in October, if I'm not mistaken, October 27th. Yes. This is a story from the Vanguard newspaper. I'd like to just give you some background now. Serap had filed a contempt lawsuit against Professor Mahmood Yakubu, chairman of INEC, for failing to investigate the allegation of electoral offences committed during the 2023 general elections to identify suspected perpetrators and their sponsors and ensure their effective prosecution. Justice Obiora Ategu Egwatu of the Federal High Court in Abuja had on July 18, 2024, ordered INEC to pursue cases of bribery against the state governors and their deputies and other electoral offences committed during the 2023 general elections. Justice Egwatu also ordered INEC to seek the appointment of independent counsel to investigate allegations of electoral offences, including bribery, vote buying, conspiracy, and undue influence against state governors and their deputies during the 2023 general elections. However, according to the Vanguard newspaper, INEC and Professor Yakub had failed and also refused to implement the judgment. So the Federal High Court in Abuja, in the notice of these consequences of disobedience to order of court, warned Professor Yakubu that he would be guilty of contempt of court and liable to be committed to prison if he fails to obey the court's judgment and orders. Anyway, this is the basis for our conversation today. Once again, my guest is joining us via Zoom. Paul James is of Yiaga Africa. Paul, it's so good to have you join us once again. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Thank you, Maryann. Good to see you again. Happy New Year, indeed.
Oh, yes. Happy New Year.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while. It's been a while. The work gets the best of us, I know.
It's been a while, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know that you've covered so many elections. I feel like every election cycle, before the elections and during the elections and after the elections, you and I are always having conversations about elections, whether they be off-cycle elections or the general elections. And so you have a fair understanding, not just as Yiaga Africa, but as a person, of all of the things that have happened in different states across the Federation. Let's start by talking about what an electoral offence is, because you see, there are people who are expecting more from INEC. In fact, there are a school of thought. There are people who belong to a school of thought that there's never been any prosecution of serious electoral offenders. I mean, even the ones that are obvious. Let's take, for example, the man whose picture was all over social media for Lagos State with a machete going after voters. Do you remember him? That particular guy is known. Of course, people know his name. They know his family. There's also a certain person who was going around polling units telling people that if you are not voting for a certain political party, you should go home. These are some of the people that average Nigerians would be expecting to see INEC, maybe probe or bring before a court to answer questions, but that has not been done. So is Serap right to say that Professor Mahmood Yakubu and his INEC have failed to prosecute these electoral offenders? And I don't think it's just one person.
Well, Maryann, if you can hear me,
I can hear you.
I think we might also be looking at the wrong place or the wrong location, not making excuses for INEC, but also to say, going into the 2023 election, INEC was party always to over 100 800,000 suits in the law court. INEC is one body. So different groups have joined INEC in their own suit in the court. How many of these will INEC respectfully want to be part of? Like we know, INEC has its own legal department that also tried to pursue some of these issues for decommission. A couple of times, even the commission has said it is overwhelmed or overburdened, especially with some of these requests. Perhaps that is also why over time there has been a lot of call for a separate commission to deal with matters of electoral offenses. Now, these are before, during, and after election. And most times in this conversation, people tend to be territorializing the conversation. For instance, the Electoral Act or the law had granted INEC the permission to be the body responsible for our election, meaning by extension that even at the polling unit level, the commission staff, or by extension, commission ad hoc staff, are the ones in charge or responsible for the conduct of election at the polling unit level. Sometimes we see offenses happening at the polling unit level, and the security agencies that are assigned to the polling unit will tell you we will not act until the commission asks us to act. In fact, recently, on the 31st of October, we were at the roundtable with the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud, the quarterly consultative meeting with stakeholders, where the same question also came up, especially about Sarah taking INEC to court and all of that. And I recall the response by the INEC chairman. They are aware of all of these things. But then most times, for instance, at the polling unit, things will be happening and police will not act. It's just a simple case of saying your roof is coming down. You don't want to act because perhaps you are not a plumber, you're not a welder and all of that. There are a few things that you could do before the big help will come. And most times what you see happening is we have other anti-graft agencies stepping in also to take over the responsibility of the security agencies that are also assigned to polling units. Sometimes, in fact, for instance, the recent Ondo election, we got DSS arresting people in some polling units in Akure. And so you begin to wonder, we spend a lot of resources sometimes in deploying policemen to our polling units. Over 34,000 policemen were deployed to Edo for the Edo election. In the last election, the joint forces deployed close to 35,000 of their people to the security polling units. Deployment was superb in the Edo election. I'm taking Edo because it's just the recent election.
Yeah.
Almost every
Here are some results from a search.
every polling unit in Edo had a personnel that was deployed based on the data that we gathered. And we also had received reports of vote buying in 14% of the 300 polling units that we had sampled in Edo State, to tell you that it had happened on a very alarming, at a very alarming rate. Now, in some of these places, they happen also at a public glare, at a full glare, and no arrest was made. So the question is, while I agree that we can also ask questions of INEC, we should also start asking questions of other persons or other agencies of government that will also deploy and will give certain responsibility. Perhaps they also need to start accounting for those responsibilities. If electoral offenses happen at the polling unit that we can trace, we need to start asking questions: who was the security person that was deployed to the polling unit? And also, what action did he or she take when that offense had happened at the polling unit level? Beyond that also, if you can still hear me, there are also other issues around the concerns of electoral offenses. For instance, when you expect an arrest to be made at the polling unit, and if you go to the court may ask you for witness. Witness simply imply you may even have to go and look for the person that did the arrest, or who is ever doing the prosecution. And if you think about how we do our deployments around election, security forces are brought in from other states to come and support. It implies we have to provide resources for the security person or for the court to go after the person in the state, to go pick up the person to come for whatever will be the trial or the hearing in the court. How many times do you want to be doing all of that? Persons have asked in the past that maybe we should start going the way of thinking about a special tribunal, so that as these offenses happen at this spot, They are tried, and at the spot, whatever it is will be the verdict for the person, and then you do the trial there, and then you move on with it. Most times, what has been the challenge, most times it's also the timing around these offenses. That's why I say you don't also want to look at just one direction. You also want to look at the justice system in this country. You could have offenses going on, cases going on in the court for years. And that is why up to this moment as we speak, we have not heard about any high-profile prosecution that has happened.
Yes.
Arrest or prosecution. The commission will tell you, actually, if you engage them, they will tell you that they will make some of these arrests. Sometimes they don't actually come public with this. For instance, if you recall, there were times in past where even the commission handed over its own staff to the security agencies. We got places, for instance, I think it was Akwa Ibom or Rivers State, where the returning officer also made a mess of the process. The commission itself handed those officials to the security agencies.
And I think also Adamawa was very, I think also Adamawa was.
Exactly. Adamawa is also another case in point. Adamawa just happened after the 2023 election, part of it. The commission did take the person to court. The commission itself, not only Adamawa, Sokoto was another case, Abia was also another case. So I think sometimes when we also talk, we also need to reflect back in retrospect to look through what has the commission done at any point in time to remedify also the situation. Like I said, we don't want to keep it just to the jurisdiction of the commission, but we need to also expand the net and look at other agencies and also hold people to account if they are not doing what is expected of them to do.
Lovely. I'm going to come to you about the duty of law enforcement, but let me start by talking about, I remember under the Buhari administration, there was a push of sorts. I don't know to what extent, when the Buhari administration said they were going to have these tribunals, extra tribunals. And I think the other question that people were asking were, who are the people who are going to superintend these tribunals when we already don't have enough people in the courts, when the courts are already also bamboozled by too many cases. But I mean, I'm guessing the Buhari administration looked at those tribunals as a solution and a fast-tracking process, for the prosecution of these electoral offenses. But that obviously died a natural death and went with that administration. Now, fast forward after the 2023 elections, there's so many issues that have been left unattended. Yes, INEC, I've seen INEC's response. I would have read it out in a bit. But then how do you gain the trust of Nigerians when already you were the ones that made the promise? A lot of money was voted for the 2023 elections. INEC promised us so much and delivered very little. So yes, INEC might be saying we're doing our bit, the little we can. But the security agencies also have the responsibility of, apprehending and presenting these people to the court. But let me take your mind to what happened recently in Rivers. Also, I think that's what was going to happen, or that's what also happened in Kanu with the local government elections, where the law enforcement pulled out of the election saying that they will not participate in an election. Is the onus not back on INEC? Because at this point, the election is being conducted by INEC, but there's no security agency. So in those cases, what do you do? I know they're isolated, but we must talk about them.
Yeah, so again, Maryann, let me stay first with the justice system in the country. If you go back also to the 2023 election, where we got tribunals and all of that after the election. And even before the election, people went through the different court system. What usually happens around the election is that most of these justices are assigned to this case. It means every other case that they have been dealing with will be suspended for that period. I think there was a research that was conducted by the Kimpa Development Initiative about all of those things. Now, to tell you that most times they are also overstretched in the way they handle these things. And that is why over time there had been that one call, can we have just whatever? Maybe that's also the idea why former President Buhari wanted to come up with that idea. Just have whether a commission or something that is just responsible strictly for dealing with electoral offenses. Now, if you look at also other jurisdictions, I know you mentioned Kano and all of that, and Rivers, how we had elections with that other thing. Look at also what had happened around those elections. in one breath, what my worry will have been also about how the state capture that is happening and how that is also impacting on the institutions of government, because clearly that is what is there. On one breath, in July this year, the Supreme Court granted autonomy to local government. By extension, the court also had asked that the local government start conducting election. There were attempts by this other state to conduct their own election. In Rivers State, people went to the court. The same court again now stopped the state from conducting local government election. The same court said INEC should not give voters registered to the state to conduct election. As of course, the police said they will have to respect the authority of the court and not participate in the process. But the governor, of course, have their other ways of engaging. They went to the civil defense. Civil defense decided to provide support. I think it was also about similar case in Kano. They tried to stop the election and all of that, but at the end, the governor also had the way to maneuver through that and also have that process. So what is happening truly, if you look at it carefully, is the fact that the government gives with one hand and takes with one hand. And then the sincerity of purpose in all of this, because even the idea of the electoral offenses that we're talking about, look at the personalities and look at all the issues around electoral offenses and see who and who is involved. We can actually point fingers. We can identify people that are responsible for this. But what has been public action towards that? What has also been government actions towards that? We always make noise after every election, and then we move on quickly. And most times you can also actually, like I will keep saying, hold people to certain that they said and how it will push people to act. We have seen election will happen and a party will tell you that we are going to adopt the same approach for the next election, or we are going to adopt the same template for the next election. What is the template? What is the approach? This is a party that will not necessarily even engage. Again, I will use another classical example. The electorate now provides 180 days for parties to engage the people, to speak with the people, to share their ideas with the people. What we saw in Ondo is that at some point, what the parties were doing was distributing fertilizers. They identified community heads and all of that, gatekeepers in the state, and gave them.
But don't you think that that's where society? But don't you think that that's where society has gotten to?
It's difficult to draw the line between vote buying and palliative. But when it also metamorphosed to giving people 2,000 and 3,000 and all of that, you begin to wonder. Most of those parties did not start public engagement until the middle of October. One of the parties did its public launch for campaign on the 15th of October. One did around the 21st of October. This is barely a month to the election. And this has a way of impacting the process. The last election in Ondo in 2020, turnout was 32%. In 2016, turnout was 35%. In 2012, turnout was 39%.
Wow.
In this election, turnout was 24%.
Wow, the lowest of low.
Because we have relegated the important aspect of all of these processes. And what happened, like I told you earlier, check the reports of most of the observer groups that participated in the election about the incident of vote buying. The CDD deployed observers. Their report captured vote buying in 10% of the polling units where they deployed observers. Wow. Yiaga Africa's report captured vote buying in 14% of polling units.
Wow.
If you aggregate all of this, you'll see that vote buying happened in an unprecedented manner.
I'm so sorry. We have to go on a quick break. Paul.
Two major parties.
I'm so
More
sorry. We have
news
to go
and
on a quick break.
information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
It's that time of the week again. Are you ready to dive into the wide world of news? Join us for the Hat Fact Awards every Friday at 3 to 4 p.m. on Nigeria Info FM. We are breaking down the best, the worst, and the downright Nawa stories that had everyone talking this week.
No, wow. Some people then to do.
From jaw-dropping headlines to the most outrageous events, we've got it all covered.
And y'all know how we do it, so let's get it on.
Tune in as we celebrate the stories that make you laugh, cry, and shake your head in disbelief. Whether it's the latest viral sensation or the craziest political blunder,
we are going to provide you with insecurity.
We'll give you the rundown on what's hot and what's not. And guess what? You get to vote for your favorite stories in our weekly awards. Who will take home the coveted title of the best stories of the week, and which tale will earn the infamous worst story of the week? Hard Facts Awards on Nigeria Info FM, where we turn the news into entertainment.
12 debaters have now qualified for the round of 16 of Nigeria Info's I Beg to Differ Season 8. Tomorrow, 2 debaters will join them. At 4 p.m. on Wednesday, Ilechukwu Malizu and Ezuma Jessica Onyechukwu will debate the topic, There Should Be a Limit to Human Population Growth. And at 5 p.m., Olamide Oladipo and Alexandra Chidinma Richie will go head-to-head on the topic, Nigerian government should prioritize restructuring over economic reforms. Who of these 4 debaters will advance to the round of 16? Well, I am Yvonne Ohaifo. Join Femi Obang-Daniels and me as we find out tomorrow, starting at 4 p.m. I Beg to Differ Season 8. 32 debaters, now 20. 1 winner, 1 million naira. Sponsored by Tollywood College. Supported by Obiwizi, Lucas Green Fashion, Biloxi, Card Center Nigeria Limited, and Porters Group. For sponsorship of the next season, send an email to info@nigeriainfo.fm. I Beg to Differ, a tournament of champions.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Millions of listeners trust us on Hatchback. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, you know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts
With Maryann Okon.
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Yes, it's still the nation's #1 talk news and sports radio station, 99.3 Nigeria Info. My name is Maryann Okon. This is Hard Facts, and we're looking at the prosecution of electoral or election offenders, because many have advocated for this over the years. And I know, especially after every election cycle, just like my guest has said, we scream and we kick and, shout about these issues. But then we don't look at it or follow it to a logical conclusion. In other words, we don't see to it that INEC does its job, security agencies do their job. But that's why we're having this conversation. Do we have the underbelly? Do we have the guts? Do we have what it takes to truly and thoroughly prosecute election offenders, no matter whose ox is gored? Do we have it? My guest is Paul James. He is of Yiaga Africa. Paul, before we went on that break, you were trying to, elaborate on some issues that we raised earlier on. Quickly.
Yes, so I'm just saying, again, I will stay with the justice system. Even if you go back to the 2023 election, for instance, we know of some high-profile cases that had happened, and how did that end? Especially when you can point fingers. I say when you talk about these offenses, you can always put them at the doorstep of the major parties. I'm trying to avoid the word using major, but you will know where to point these things to. When Ondo happened, most of the people you interact with, they will say it's either APC was giving them money or PDP was giving them money. It was a case of the highest bidder, vote for cash. So we know this. So, we can't absolve people of this responsibility. It's just to go back to the drawing board and speak to the individuals involved. We are making a mockery of our democracy, one. We are also turning people into, people are becoming intellectually lazy. People wouldn't want to engage, but want to take the shortcut, the easy way out. We cannot have INEC plan for election for 12 months, stakeholders engage in voter education for 6 months, 3 months, and then somebody will just come a weekend of the election and make a rubbish of everything by simply just giving people money to vote for them. And then again, people will tell you about, if you also look at the penalties, they are too soft and all of that. At least let the arrest happen. That's also the point where I agree with Syrup. Let it happen. Let us make an example with one of these persons. Again, like what we keep saying, maybe it will serve as deterrent. If you go to the electorate, I think the offense for most of these are in the region of 500,000 or imprisonment of 12 months and all of that. Most times, people cannot also be acting ignorant, because if we keep drumming this idea of electoral offenses, vote buying, and all of that, I am sure somehow people are picking it, people are hearing it. Again, I will take it back to the agencies. They just need to just do more. Justice system, especially in this country, I am worried that the way things have been happening in the last couple of years, we are heading towards a one-party system.
But it's not constitutional. Yes,
exactly.
Of course, it's not constitutional, so it might not be a one-party system, but it might be a one-party leaning.
It is not constitutional, but it means some people are doing.
Yeah.
We are leaning towards that.
Yeah.
We are leaning towards that. And people are doing a lot of scheming to stay afloat. People are doing a lot of scheming to get it all. And when you do all of that, what is the implication? Accountability becomes a problem. Checks and balances become a problem.
Okay, Paul. Let's move it away. I'm not in any way absolving the government, INEC, or security agencies of anything, but let's talk about ourselves, because you see, these political parties, or these politicians, these very bad people that we point fingers at, are not doing this alone. The vote buying happens between two people: someone who's willing, a willing taker, and a willing giver. And all of the statistics that you've gotten over the years as election observers are obviously of people who are willing to receive monies, whether they vote for the parties or not. They're susceptible. Many would say that maybe it could be poverty. It could also be a warped mentality, like you said, laziness of sorts, and we no longer want to engage. We're not interested. Waiting mango chop. How do we rid ourselves of that? Because also we're in a place in our lives that many of us have never been. And I'm talking about those of us who are in our early 40s and our mid 40s. All our lives, we've never probably been in a situation as bad as this. And so people might be willing to tilt to the whims and caprices of whatever politician is, willing to give food or money. How do we even rise above that? And in the same breath, ask for good governance and free, fair, credible elections?
Well, I think for as human beings, if there is one thing that God has given everybody, is the free will, but also with something called conscience. And truthfully, everybody mostly always have that small voice that always tells us the difference between what is good and evil, what is right and wrong. We have seen in some states, like in Anambra in 2021, in Ekiti in 2022, where people rejected offers that were made at the polling unit. In Anambra, some group of women rejected offers that were made. In Ekiti, we had also those that instance where people at the polling unit rejected offers that were made. We need to make a good example of some of this. Those are the things that we need to be projecting for people to understand and people to appreciate that we can actually say no to this. Sometimes what we try to do also is to provide that education.
Oh my goodness, Paul, we lost your audio. I'm guessing that we're having a connection issue. Are you back? Okay.
I am back. I'm just saying the last election that happened, the biggest offer that was made was 20,000 naira. 20,000 naira in 4 years, that is what it means. 5,000 naira per year. How much is minimum wage now? Average 70,000 naira. So if you start that education from that minimum wage is even for a month, not for a year. People, if you begin to educate people, conscientize people from that angle, maybe it will also help. One of the things that we also have to understand is that most of these resources that are offered at the polling, or around electoral periods, are the patrimony of the people. Whoever emerges or eventually becomes a leader will first want to recoup their investment before they start thinking about any development from the people. So maybe a lot of public awareness, a lot of public education need to happen, especially around the moral side of this. The moral side of this. If the penalties from the government is not working, maybe then we need to go more spiritual and begin to educate people more about the danger of engaging in this vote buying.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the idea that we need to go spiritual. What are we doing? Are we invoking Ogun? What are we doing? Anyway, I'm just. I don't think. I don't want to think about anything. Anyway, I want to open up the phone lines. I want people to join the conversation because there are those who also say we're not taking any monies to vote. We want to vote our consciences, but they're not even letting us. And at the end of the day, these votes don't count. And some clown becomes president or governor or House of Rep member or local government chairman. And you're telling me that, I should be moral. Sorry, let me use the street balance. Who morality help? I'm not encouraging anything, but I'm just echoing the minds of my people. But the phone lines are open, Lagos. You could join the conversation. Paul James is here from Yiaga, Africa, and we're talking about election offenders and the prosecution process of these people who have continuously engaged in electoral offense. What's the way forward? Are we ever going to get out of this cycle that might be just deadly for what we call a democracy today? 0201 277 0993. That's 0201 277 0993 if you are male. For the female, 0201 465 7190. That's 0201 465 7190. You can send me a message on WhatsApp. It's 08095975805. You can join the conversation via Skype if you're listening from outside of the country. We're Nigeria Info FM on Skype. We're live on YouTube and Facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. Post your comment on our live feed. We'd like to hear from you. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Good afternoon, Maryann.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to your guest. This is Pastor Ladipo.
Go ahead.
I'm calling from Orile Goma.
You have 60 seconds. Go ahead, sir.
Maryann, I think the factors that are really militating against us getting it right is about 3 factors. 1, the electoral institution. 2, the security agencies. 3, the judiciary. Now, for us to overcome these 3, because if they use the electoral system and the thing is people are rejecting and standing their ground, what about how do we overcome the security forces? What about when they now want to put themselves by all means by using the courts? So for me, like your guest said, I think electoral awareness should start from the grassroots, because those are the people that they are really, really using against us. If you find that the elite are free. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Pastor Ladipo, for calling. Hello. Welcome to Hard Facts. Hello.
Maryann Okon.
Good afternoon. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
Emeka is my name from Salt Lake Town.
Go ahead.
Greetings to your esteemed guest in the studio.
All right.
In addition to what Pastor Ladipo has said, I think everything boils down to us as a people. How prepared are we? Do we really need reforms? Are we really prepared? Because he cited examples of some states where people rejected vote buying. We need to broaden that orientation. Let people understand the consequences of allowing themselves to be bought over. Then beyond that, to these institutions as well, because how do you go about prosecuting any pro-ruling party supporter that engages in electoral violence? Most of these people who perpetrate these things are known. We see them. Even after the past election, most of them are still moving about, roaming about, even here in Satellite Town. Nobody has gone after them. How do you go after them when institutions of the state have been emasculated? So when we talk about institutions, we need to reform our institutions. First of all, after reforming our mindset, then the institutions. Without reforming institutions, this whole idea of prosecuting electoral offenders is just rhetoric.
All right.
We can never get there.
Okay, Emeka. Thank you very much for calling. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Well, good afternoon, Maryann.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I want to ask.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
We need Uzoma from Ikotu.
All right, Uzoma, go ahead.
What is the need of telling people, Nigerians, to go and get their PVC and go and stand under the sun, under the rain to go and vote, when they know, one, that our vote does not count. Secondly, APC are particular in buying votes, and no arrest is being made. And every time they will discard.
Uzo, but who are the people that are selling their votes? Are those people not Nigerians? Are they from Niger?
I don't know.
If a party is known for buying and then it means that there's a market. There are people who are willing to sell, right?
Yes, and again, no arrest. We only hear that buying votes. Why are they not arresting them for evidence sake? And after they will tell you to go to court. Is there need of telling Nigerians to go and get PVC and stand on the sun and make and sell their cards when it's not being counted? It baffles me.
Thank you, Zo, for calling. I do appreciate it. Hello, welcome to Hard Fact.
Hi, Maryann.
Hi.
This is Oboli calling from Florida.
Mr. Boli, go ahead, please.
Even if everything aligns, reforms, electoral reforms, the masses, everybody has a paradigm shift or something. The same people you're asking to come and fight for good elections will be the one that will still rig the same elections, Maryann. This corruption stems from top to the bottom. They want a one-party system. They want everything room to parlor politics, and so it will not work except they themselves are ousted out of power. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Boli, for calling. Ize is calling us from Modogbolu.
Yes, so I'm here.
Turn off your radio, Ize.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You see, last Saturday, there is a local government election in my area here, in Odogbolu here, in Ogun State here. But I tell you, what really happened is this. The PDP is what everybody here votes for. So when the...
How can you tell that is... Okay, you have one vote.
I was sitting down where they are doing the voting. I saw it with my own naked eyes. So it was the APC that come and jack the voting, this thing, that's the, what do you call it?
The ballot box.
Yes. And because of that, they arrested many people. So, but now, I don't think that those people are still with the police, so they are released all of them. So tell me, if I'm sitting down watching them doing that thing will encourage me to go and stand online and waste my time in that hot sun on that very last Saturday? I know how hot is the sun now. Do you think that I can get mine to go there next election to go and vote? Because I know that vote is not going to count. The ruling party will be the carrier of everything.
Okay.
If they see that the thing is going against them, they will fight you because their guy is on the top. So what are we going to...
Okay, Ize, your 60 seconds is over. Okay.
I'm telling you that...
Thank you very much for calling and letting you go because of time. I'm coming back to you, Paul. Everyone who's called so far is obviously saying almost the same thing. We need to weed out these said people so that we can have some sort of a do-over. But I really don't know because I don't want to be a naysayer. Like I said, there is a willing seller. So there's a market for whoever is trying to buy votes. And if they're not buying votes, the people who are tasked with the responsibility of snatching ballot boxes and causing violence are also part of this country, and they're willing. And half the time, these people have their way. So where does that leave the genuine person who wants good governance? This is the question. It looks like we're in between a rock and a hard place. Where do you stand?
Well, Maryann, if you also look at what is happening, I think it's systemic. But to a large extent, some of the systems are also getting better. And that is why the politicians are always crafty. Yes. When one process is getting better, they look for how to continue to exploit the process. I'm saying this also because I have been part of most of these processes. For instance, if you look at the Edo election and the Ondo election, to some extent, the election day process was better. In Edo, what happened was that the process was manipulated at the point of collation. And then in this other process, in the sense that the election, the administration is getting better, what the politicians have now decided to be doing, because they are also not too sure of, not too confident whether or not they are going to get the support or the votes of the people, what they have resorted to doing is buying the people to what they now call see and buy. That is to show who you voted for, and then you collect your money. That is the element that has remained, and that element, I think we can also fix it. There are a lot of ways we can fix it. I agree about mindset reorientation and all of that, but like I will keep saying also, we know the individuals that are involved. Most times what happens is everybody wants to be defensive. If you speak to the political parties, they will tell you CSOs are not doing enough. If you speak to CSOs, they will tell you national orientation is not doing enough and all of that. And now, who has the highest following? A political party. Who can do most of this education that we're talking about? The political party. We have had people in this country that will tell you, I will not give money, or I don't have the resources to give. Vote for me because you want to vote for me. Persons that are not too sure of themselves will be the one that want to go the easy way.
Yeah, but what's the percentage? But what's the percentage of those people who are not willing to sell or give you money to vote for them? Half the time they don't make it. Half the time. What's the percentage of the people?
That is why I say I agree. That is why I said I agree that it is systemic and we can fix it. How do we fix it? There are options. The electoral umpire, for instance, has given us 19 other options. We got 19 parties on the ballot. We can rally around a candidate. I have seen it in Kenya in the past where an individual with zero kobo started public campaigns and people rallied around these individuals until the individual got elected. Even in the last 2023 election, if you recall, there are some persons that got elected. People say based on the goodwill of others, they got lucky. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think we need to also, as a people, begin to identify this individual. If you truly want to push the old guys out, we need to start identifying individuals and also throwing support around the individual. What happened is just about numbers. Because politicians know they cannot be manipulating the numbers at the point of election administration, what they are now doing is buying the people. So it's to go back to the people, continue to provide the education to the people, continue to identify credible, capable, and people that also have character that we can throw the support around and get the people to rally around and throw the support to them on election day. We have seen also that this old guard, what they do is that they had torn our political system to platform for negotiations. You will see 19 persons on the ballot. The weekend of the election, 3-4 people will say they have decided to step down to support another candidate. So that is why I say we also have to go back to that to fix the problem from the system. People have clamored for maybe was to start talking about independent candidacy. Even with what is existing, I am telling you that a community, a state, a local government can identify an individual, do public campaign, throw public support around the individual, credible individual. By the time we begin to plant one or two, for me, there are seeds that will germinate and eventually will have the kind of systems we have in the future. Okay. It will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of effort. But I think we can do it as a people. We are very determined as a country. We are very, very determined as a people. And I think if we put our mind to it, we will do it.
All right. Well, let me take a few messages coming in on WhatsApp and on Facebook Live. And then, of course, we'll come back to the phone lines. We still have time. On Facebook, the election that happened in there were over national boxes, technical glitch, no cash and carry, INEC and judiciary or police conspiracy. You ask, where is INEC chairman to monitor and observe these elections? What will he say concerning these elections compared to the ones that you did here? Where is what fraudulent? My God. Well, thank you very much, Dada Dio, for your message. It's very long, so I can't continue. On WhatsApp here, someone says, our pretense on the fact that Nigeria could be salvaged through voting is the highest unmaking of all of us. The country bedeviled by nepotism, tribal and ethnocentric impulse can never redeem itself from a one-chance syndrome. We're headed for autocracy and totalitarianism, powered by fascists and power-mongering leaders. Let's call for an unbundling and a reversal to regional governance. This is Merchant Man. Okay, this one says, ask your guests, what about the traditional rulers that used to bring oro on the day of election? I'm saying those ones from the southwest. What happens to them? Paul will answer that question. Someone here says we're under a very serious sledge of APC. Until Nigerians get rid of these people, we will continue to experience the same thing. APC is the greatest disaster that has happened to this country. John Abafi sent us that one. This one says, I can categorically tell you or tell the world that APC did not win this election. It's INEC that edited the results in favor of the APC. APC, good rice and giving money for voters, but people still did not vote for them. PDP won the election. Which election are you talking about? Oh, APC had more votes in Edo North and Edo South. PDP won it. How many are they in Edo North? Okay, that's debatable. This one says vote buying at polling units is not our biggest issue. The issues are voter intimidation and election disruption. Finally, when those hurdles are crossed, we encounter the reality that the votes do not count. The last hope of the common man, the judiciary, is also not just. We need to fix all those and then we're good. This is from Franklin. Another person here says, I think it is wrong for people to keep... He says, I think it's wrong for people to keep on attacking our electoral system instead of blaming themselves for always making the wrong choices anytime they have the opportunity to elect their leaders. Our electoral system is one of the best in the world. It is credible and transparent. That is why an opposition can take the information from the system to court and present it as evidence. And many times they often win. The only reform we should embark on now is to reform our minds, the minds of the voters who think they will only vote for you when you pay them, and those that don't collect bribe before they vote. Many of them often vote based on tribalism and religion, I beg your pardon. If those people must take back their freedom from politicians, they must be ready to pay financially or physically. All right, let me move away from that. That's a long message. Oshodio Lawrence here says electoral offenders can never be prosecuted because of the security operative deployed to the election is from parts of the country. It's from different parts of the country. So they don't want to come back to testify against the offender because of logistics and the money they're going to spend for transport. Which government who sent them there can never refund back. So because of the police, the police are afraid to arrest anyone to avoid the stress. Okay, that's interesting. Someone says, according to your guess, vote buying occurred in 14% of 300 polling units. That's accounted for about 42 polling units. This figure, strictly speaking, is insignificant to discredit the credibility of an election. The guest was very emphatic and sincere about everyone taking responsibility, both the government and the general public, and not finger pointing at one particular institution. FM from Ogun State. This one here says, for me, I'm not expecting anything good or credible coming from INEC and the judiciary with these sets of leaders we currently have. We're heading towards a one-party system. I thought Kofi was able to educate you guys about what a one-party system means today, but it's okay. Daniel from Ogba, thank you for your message. I'm coming back to the phone lines in a bit. But before then, we're going to go for a quick 1-minute break, and when we come back, I'm taking more of your thoughts. Ayo here says nothing will change until we allow e-voting and coalition. We still have in the studio with us Paul James. He is the program manager for Yiaga Africa. We still have some time. He's going to keep answering some questions here, or listen to your comments. We're going on a very short break, and when we come back, the conversation continues. Don't forget, I Beg to Differ comes up at the top of the hour. I'll be letting you know what topics the kids are debating on today.
Millions of listeners trust us on Hatchback. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
There's a
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.